Pa-off na lang po ng inyong mga speakers. And for our IT 204 LEC, the lesson for today is types of database models. So you all know what database is, di ba? So it is a group of information. Okay, so here in IT 204, just a little knowledge about the different database model, although you already studied this. Okay, so we have the first one, the hierarchical model. So the evolutions of that. So meron tayong tinatawag na GUAM or GUAM. It means Generalized Update Access Method. So it is based on the recognition that the many smaller parts would come together as components of still larger components. Ang tinatawag na IMS. So nagkaroon lang naman tayo talaga ng larger, no, larger information nung dumating ang internet natin, no? So world's leading mainframe hierarchical database system in the 1970s and early 1980s. So tayo 80s na tayo nagkaroon ng internet. Pero yung iba 70s pa lang meron silang internet. Okay, so hierarchical database model is useful for a certain type of data storage, but it is not extremely versatile kasi ang hierarchical, ito po yung unang-una pang model ng database. So pag una, it means hindi pa ganun kadami yung database natin. So alam niyo na yung sinabing hierarchical, di ba? Parang you will think of that as yung composition sa isang kumpanya, kung sino yung mataas, then it follows yung second to the highest hanggang dun sa pinaka baba. So ang style niyan is parang pyramid, di ba? Okay, so its limitations mean that it is confined to some very specific uses. Limited lang daw sa isang specific uses. Not unlike today, although ginagamit pa rin natin yung hierarchical model, but to specify the summary of the database storage that we use. Diba? Kasi pwede natin gamitin yung ibang model na meron tayo ngayon to give the flow of the data, di ba? Katulad ng DFD natin. Okay, hierarchical databases were popular in early database design in the era of mainframe computers. Yeah, so while some IBM and Microsoft models are still in use, many other types of business databases use more flexible models to accommodate more sophisticated types of data management. So kumbaga, ito yung ninuno ng ating mga database model. Okay, the structure or the characteristics. So each parent can have many children. So ibig sabihin ng parents, yung pinaka-top portion ng hierarchical model. So that will be the parents, and subordinate to that, yun na yung mga children. So each child has only one parent. No? Kaya nga pyramid ang itsura niyan kasi meron lang siyang isa sa taas and then meron na ng mga subordinates sa ibaba. So tree is defined by path that traces parent segments to child segments beginning from the left. So left to the right, no, yung composition ng tree. Halimbawa, hierarchical models or structure ng family ninyo. Diba? So unang-una, kanino nag-start yung inyong last name, yung apelido. So yun yung pinaka-parents. And out of that parent, so nagkaroon na yan ng mga child. So it means mga brothers and sisters or siblings ng iyong magulang. So meron din tayong tinatawag ng hierarchical path wherein it is an ordered sequencing of segments tracing hierarchical structure. So madaling intindihin, di ba? Pag sa hierarchical structure mo nilagay. Kasi alam mo na yung nasa taas, Halimbawa, yung nasa taas ay menu, yung isang menu na yon, so meron pa siya mga sub-menu sa ibaba. Or yung buong system nakalagay sa taas, no? Then naka-subordinate yung mga child niya, yung mga subsystem, no? Sa ginagawa nating sa mga na-encounter nyo na inyong mga case studies. No? Pag gagawaan niyo ng hierarchical model yung mga case studies, syempre lalagay nyo sa pinaka-parents yung pangalan ng system ninyo. And out of that, yung mga subsystem. So, pwede din yung subsystem, meron pang sub-subsystem. So, meron pang mga nakalagay na component sa loob. Ayan, hanggang ma-reach mo yung pinaka-detailed, small pieces of information na kailangan mo sa iyong system. So, yun yung mga nasa ibaba na. Kaya medyo malaki, no? Malawak yung portion sa bandang ibaba ng hierarchical structure natin or model. Yan. So, as you can see on this diagram, so meron tayo ditong final assembly or filing cabinet. Okay, so on that, we have the child level 1 segment or the root children. Meron tayo diyang component A, component B, component C. So out of that final assembly, merong mga subordinate na components A to C. And each component have also their own subordinate. No? So yung tinatawag na level 2 segments. So level 1 children yan. Kumbaga, yung nasa itaas ng final assembly, so yan na yung lolo. So meron na siyang apo. With assembly A, for component A, may isa siyang component. And then sa component C, meron siyang dalawa. No? Assembly B and assembly C. So pwede pa rin, kung hindi doon na-stop yung system, so pwede pa rin magkaroon siya ng components until nga you reach the small information. And that is the level 3 segment. So, yung tinatawag na level 2 children, so mga apo na yan sa tuhod. So, for assembly A, nagkaroon siya ng children na part A and part B. For assembly B, nagkaroon siya ng children na part C at part D and part E. So, si component B sa level 1, wala siyang subsystem. Kaya walang laman yung kanyang box, no? Not unlike yung component A and C. Dito naman sa baba, si assembly C naman ang nag-stop na. So ibig sabihin hanggang dun lang yung system niya. So hanggang dun lang yung root, no? So wala na siyang anak. Kumbaga, hindi siya nagkaanak. Pero si assembly A and assembly B, nag-produce pa siya ng components. And that is for assembly A, part A and part B. For assembly B, part C, D, and E. Yan. Kung meron pa rin, pwede pa rin yun. So that will be the level 4 segments, level 3 children, and so on and so forth until mag-stop na ron. No? Mag-stop na doon kasi puro babae na yung naging anak. So pag puro babae na, natatanggal na yung last name, di ba? Kaya nga pag nag-asawa daw ang babae, unang-unang natatanggal sa kanya ay after ng kanyang kasal ay yung kanyang apelido. Ha? So nag-stop na ron, pero yung lalaki continuous pa rin yan. Okay, what are the pros and cons? It means the advantages and disadvantages of hierarchical database model. Number 1 for the advantages, conceptual simplicity. Simple lang. No? In other words, meron ka lang root at meron kang parents at meron kang children. So database security, kasi medyo simple. And data independence, database integrity, and efficiency on that time. No? Pero nung dumating na yung mga iba't ibang klase ng database models, no, parang talagang lesser lesser na yung mga gumagamit niyan. And that is the disadvantages. So, complex implementation, difficult to manage dahil kakaunti lang yung components, lacks structural independence, complex applications programming and use, implementation limitations, lack of standards. Kasi hindi ka pwedeng gumawa ng sa isang hierarchical model, no, hindi mo makikita yung data kung paano pumasok. So kasi buong system 'yon. No, hindi katulad ng ginagamit natin ngayon. So until sa kinaliit-liitang ito hanggang sa pinakamaliit lang na components, but not until the smallest data, no? Na yung mga raw data. Pero sa ibang database model, it carry, no, the smallest data. So, okay, so another example. So ito yung situations or ito yung problems. Let us say take an example of college students who take different courses. A course can be assigned to an only single student, but a student can take as many courses as they want, therefore following one-to-many relationships. So remember yung relationship ng ating database. Ano nga yung relationships na yun, di ba? There are 3 relationships in our database. Yung tinatawag na 1:1, 1:many, and many-to-many. Di ba? For this example, it gives you one-to-many relationships because of the structure of the database model. Dahil meron siyang root node, no? Ito yung pinaka-1, at yung relationships niya, yung components ng root node na yan. And the components of that is according to the college student information or courses. So meron siyang SID. So it means ito po yung mga locations na mga information na kailangan niyang i-input, no? So yung 101 Jan 23, that is the record of the storage. SID is the storage, S name is the storage for Jan, and SH is the storage for 23. And then another component is for another record. So 151 Anil 23, and then another record. So meron ditong 3 college students record, no? For the first record of Jan, so meron siyang subject na or courses na C1 and then C sharp. And then for second record, meron siyang C2 as the ID, and then Python yung kanyang subject for that name of the subject or the courses or the programs. And then meron pa rin siyang pangalawang subject which is C3. C3 ang code at meron siyang title na Java. For the third college students, meron siyang C4 na ID, meron lang siyang isa. So yung dalawang students, they only have one subject, C1 and C4, not unlike yung ating second or yung nasa gitnang students, meron siyang dalawang subject which is C2 and C3. So ganon, kaya tinatawag itong one-to-many relationships. Okay, now we can represent the above hierarchical model as a relational table as shown below. So kung ito ay gagamitin na ninyo in actual applications, itong hierarchical model na ito, then you will arrive on this, di ba? Ginagawa natin yan pag gumagamit tayo ng software for database. So ano-ano ba yung mga database software na ginagamit ninyo? Like, ngayon tayo, ang database na ginagamit natin sa IT204 is your Excel. Kasi pwede rin kayo maglagay ng database dyan sa Excel ninyo, right? Doon sa mga previous na database na ginamit ninyo, katulad ng Access sa Microsoft. Ngayon kung sa iba, gumagamit pa kayo ng ibang database software. And you need to, in order to use that database software, syempre magke-create ka ng table. No? Table para dyan sa inyong database. And on that table, nakalagay doon yung laman ng iyong hierarchical. Ang laman ng hierarchical nyo, for each table, you have there the student ID, the student name, and the student age. And then separate naman yung table para sa courses or para sa subject or program. Katulad ng ID, name, course ID, name, and subject ID. So, yan yung ating table. Kaya nga gumagawa tayo ng normalization, di ba? Bago tayo mag-create ng ating hierarchical model or kahit na anong model dyan, we need to perform first normalizations of the data. Yun ang first step, no? Para makapag-create tayo ng database structure natin. So, normalization, we have to perform first, second, and third normalization. So, after, based on the third, kasi sa third, nakasegregate na kung anong dapat na pagsama-samahin ninyo, then you are now ready to create the structure. And after you create the structure, magkikreate na kayo or mag-a-apply na kayo ng inyong database software. So, it means mag-i-input na kayo ng inyong database structure gamit ang applications software. Next is the network model. So the network model is another types of database model created to represent complex data relationships more effectively. It improves database performance. So although pwede rin naman natin gamitin yung hierarchical, pero in our network, so siguro mas magandang gamitin yung hierarchical para sa data information sa loob ng system. Bagay, lahat naman yan system. Pero dito, network model, it means gagamitin natin ito for our networking. So it is a unique features of the network model is its schema. So yung kanyang unique features ay yung tinatawag na schema, which is viewed as a graph where relationship types are arcs and object types are the nodes. No? So paano ba yung ating network model na yan? Kasi with your networking subject, so gagawa rin po kayo ng inyong network model. Hindi lang po sa ating system na ginagawa ninyo, yung mga POS na yan, nagagawa kayo ng database model. Meron din tayo sa ating networking. And the basic structure of our network models are the set, the owner, and the member. So structure means resemble the hierarchical model, collections of records in one to many relationships. So yung set na tinatawag nating first structure ng ating networking or network model, that is the relationship composed of at least 2 record types. And then the owner, ano ba yung record types ng dalawa ng ating set, which is the owner and the member. So the owner is the equivalent to the hierarchical model's parent, while the member is equivalent to the hierarchical model's child. So parang pareho lang yung kanyang components, di ba? So merong owner at merong member. So it means one-to-many relationship din, katulad ng diagram na ito. So sales rep and customers. For the sales rep, kasi sa isang company, let's say isipin na lang natin na yung school natin, naka-network model din yan kasi naka-hook yan to one server. So sa loob ng server natin, kailangan may management yung ating mga files, no? To manage that file, gagawa ka syempre ng model ng networking models diyan. So ito yung diagram that represents na an example of the network. So meron tayong sales rep at meron tayong customer. Under the sales rep, we have kasi kailangan mag-produce ka ng product, ng invoice at ng payment, di ba? Kaya sa isang business firms, may customer at merong sales representative. So meron kang produkto, syempre kailangan mag-issue ka ng invoices at of course, ang pinaka-importante, yung payment. So paano mo gagawaan yan sa loob ng iyong network? No? So may server ka, so meron ka dong sa loob ng server, syempre ano ba yung nangyayari sa mga sales representative mo? So meron kanya-kanyang ano yan, lalo na kung online siya. So sa loob ng sales rep, meron siyang commissions which is the invoice, one-to-many relationship din yan. So ano ba yung invoice line na tinatawag? So invoice line, so yun yung napoproduce ng inyong invoices. Ano yung information sa loob ng resibo? Resibo po yan. So syempre meron ka dong mga produkto. So ano yung produkto? Meron niyang control number. So meron niyang, yun yung invoice line. Merong identifications, no, details about that product. Ibig sabihin. And then on that product, meron kang inventory set. So para malaman mo kung ano yung kulang at kung ano yung mabilis maubos at kung ano yung meron pa sa iyong storage. And for that customer, you have the invoice and the payment. So yung kasi every customers requires to have an invoice kung siya ay bibili. So one is to many rin yan kasi a customer can produce many invoices and a customer can have many payments. No? Kung ang isang customer mo, meron siyang repeated orders, madali mo nang malalaman na by creating a customer's information. No? Kaya sa online, bago ka makabili, you have to create or to register first para mag-establish ka na ng iyong information. Para pag nag-repeat order ka, hindi mo na kailangan mag-repeat registration. No? Papasok ka lang sa iyong account and then you can repeat the orders. So what are the pros and cons? Advantages, so same with our hierarchical, conceptual simplicity. So it handles more relationship types and data access flexibility. It promotes database integrity and data independence. So medyo nagdagdagan yung ating advantages kasi doon sa ating hierarchical, it can only handles one-to-many relationships. Kasi dito, hindi, it handles more relationship. As you can see, dito sa atin, yung one-to-many, sa loob ng one-to-many, pwede rin siya magkaroon pa ng additional relationships. Okay, the disadvantages naman, it's difficult for first-time users kasi you need to have a knowledge of networking. So, system complexity, kasi pinag-aaralan po yan. Then, lack of structural independence. Difficulties with alterations of the database because when one information entered, it can alter the entire database. So, kailangan ayusin mo yung buong database mo. Okay, another example, ito yung kaninang ipinakita dito sa medyo nilinawan lang yung ating figure 1.10. So, ganun pa rin. Makikita nyo sa sales rep, it produce many invoices. No? Sa customers, it produce many payments. Okay, what is network versus hierarchical? So, sa ating network database models, at sa ating hierarchical database models. So, ang relationships for that is for NDM, we have many-to-many relationship. For our HDM, we have one-to-many relationships. For accessing naman, for our NDM, it easily accessed because of the linkage between the information. Sa HDM naman, it's difficult to navigate because of its strict owner to member connections. No? Bago ka makapag-change ng yung level 2, dadaan ka muna sa level 1. Kaya yun yung sinasabing difficult to access. So for NDM, great flexibility among the information files because the multiple relationships among the files. While in HDM, it is less flexible. So with the collection of information, because of the hierarchical positions of the files, parang sa loob ng inyong filing cabinet, bago ka makapag-open ng file ni number 1, so kung meron siyang file sa loob, papasukin mo muna yung file na yan. Na parang sa loob ng files, meron pang another file na kailangan pasukin mo before you can enter. While dito sa NDM, sa NDM kasi natin, parang naka-ano lang yan with IP addresses, no? Makuha mo lang yung IP addresses, then you can go straight to the files of one particular record. Okay, so the files are greatly related sa ating NDM, while dito sa ating hierarchical model, when it comes to relational database model, the information is stored on separate tables tied together with other clumps of information. So yun yung ating network versus hierarchical model. Ayan, so yun ang ating pinag-aralan at ang ating network and ang ating hierarchical databases. So yung ating group activity, so ito ay to be presented. Alam niyo na yung mga groupings ninyo, di ba? So stop sharing na muna. Hindi. Ito, share ko na lang muna bago natin pag-usapan. So for your activity, number 1, give an example of different types of data models. So kailangan meron kayo ibibigay na problems katulad ng example natin kanina with our college students and the solution based on the assigned database model. Okay, so ano yung solutions for your problems? So kailangan answerable yan ng database models na naka-assign sa iyo. So you need a diagram. You are going to record a 5 minutes video participated by all members. 5 minutes lang po ang i-allow sa inyo. Then send your video in my Gmail. It is catherinedelfinda318@gmail.com kasi baka mamaya hindi makarry ng inyong messenger, kaya much better na lang sa aking email account isa-send yung video. Okay, so stop sharing ko muna yan.
Until yan, ma'am. Until ano po?
Until, anong until? Presented yan next meeting. To be presented, di ba? Kalagay dun sa inyong activity, to be presented next meeting. And that next meeting is next week. So next week, dapat bago mag-next week, dapat nakasend na sa akin yung...
Ibibigay lang kami, ma'am.
Oo. Kasi ipe-present ko yan next week. So makikita ninyo yung video ng ibang grupo. And then, pagka-present yan, we will rate, no? We will rate that. So magboboto po ninyo.
I-grade kami, ma'am.
Yes. So ang ginagawa natin, nung nandun tayo sa face-to-face, mag-grade
Okay po,
kayo ng ibang video, not your videos. Okay? So may online voting po. Gagawa tayo ng online voting para doon, para pag napanood na ninyo, I think sa Messenger naman, meron kayong survey doon, di ba?